Hey, what's up, everybody? Time once again for the DT Sports Report. I'm John Arnold, joined by Alex Ibarra. Here to look back, of course, at the game against Texas. We're going to look ahead to this week's big game down in Houston. We're also going to talk a little soccer and volleyball. They are finally back home this weekend. A lot of stuff to talk about there. But like I said, first let's talk about the game against Texas. It was a pretty good game all around. The first half was pretty sloppy, kind of slow. Second half picked up quite a bit. Red Raiders came up short 34-24, but most Red Raider fans pretty optimistic after this one, especially about the performance of Taylor Potts.
Absolutely. Mike Leach talked about it after the game and during Monday's press conference. He's pretty much really stoked about Taylor Potts' play. It was the toughness factor that Potts showed. He got hit plenty of times on the night. No hit bigger than Sergio Kindle's controversial helmet-to-helmet contact. Not any Big 12 conference repercussions held down from that, but it turns out that Taylor Potts is actually a really tough guy. Brandon Carter talked about it on Monday. The offensive linemen weren't really sure how he was going to rebound after a hit like that, because up to that point he hadn't really been hit as hard as he was on Saturday. And Mike Leach talked about how he's never really had a quarterback who's been able to do what Taylor Potts has done.
I haven't had a guy that can do it like he can. I've had every one of the guys I've had have been tough, but got hit a lot in the rest. But but the thing that he has is he can get up the next play without being tentative and rattled in any way. And I think he's more solid that way than anybody I've dealt with.
So Potts showed a lot of resiliency on Saturday, but the whole defense as a unit showed a lot of resiliency too, especially like we talked about last week with the patchwork defense they had to go with.
Absolutely. You had guys all over the field. You had Bront Bird playing defensive end. You had Richard Jones jumping back and forth from D tackle to D end. You had Brent Nickerson playing safety. You had a couple of true freshmen out there. DJ Johnson actually had an interception, and they did a really good job of pressuring Colt McCoy and keeping him out of a rhythm. But it kind of came out during this week that McCoy might have had a little bit of the flu during the game in the first half. He ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at halftime. Kind of got it going in the second half, and you could see that. But you have to give it to Tech's defense coming in there with some injuries and things like that. They really held their own and held Texas under their average in points and total offensive yards.
We're going to introduce a new segment right now to the DT Sports Report. DTSR, we usually call it DT Sports Report. Right now we're going to call it the DT Stock Report. We're going to tell you who we think is rising, who we think is falling, who we need to see a little more from. So I'll go first. I'll give my up. My up this week is Lyle Leong, a guy that caught a lot of balls last year for how young he was and did a good job, but kind of lacked consistency. Caught a ton of touchdowns against K-State, didn't really have anything after that. Last week against Rice, he caught 3 touchdown balls, and this week against Texas, 2, doing a great job stepping up when D-Tron can't get on the field. I really like what Lyle Leong is doing.
For me, the person whose stock is up is Bront Bird. He was a guy who was all over the field against Texas, playing some great defensive ball. He was going from defensive end back to linebacker, and he had 8 tackles, a few of them tackles for loss, and he had 1 pass deflection. He did an excellent job against the Longhorns.
My falling this week is Marlon Winn, the right guard. He was supposed to come in and be that consistent guy on a line that really only had Brandon Carter coming back. He hasn't shown the coaches what he needs to. He's getting kind of replaced. They're doing a rotation thing. And the hit we talked about on Taylor Potts, if he had stopped, it wouldn't have been such a bad hit.
Yeah, you're right. For me, stock down is Baron Batch. I know this is a guy who a couple of weeks before the season opener, he went down with an elbow injury, and it kind of seems like maybe that's slowing him down a little bit. He had 2 fumbles on screen passes forced by the same player, Emmanuel Acho, for the Longhorns. So Baron Batch not doing a very good job. This rushing game really needs to get it going.
Well, looking ahead to the Houston game, that is one thing I think fans are really concerned about. A lot of bright spots in the Texas game, but in this Houston game, the running game has to get going.
It has to.
They have not had a good year.
No, they haven't. Through 3 games in 2009, we got 51 carries, 86 yards, and 1.7 yards per carry with 3 touchdowns. At this point last year, Tech had 74 carries, 410 yards for 5.5 yards a pop with 9 touchdowns. So a huge difference in production.
For the defense, they're going to have to deal with a Houston quarterback in Case Keenum that's very good, very experienced. He's actually sitting 4th in active career completion percentage behind only Colt McCoy, who we saw Saturday, Sam Bradford, who we've all seen before, and Kellen Moore from Boise State. All 4 very good quarterbacks. He's got very impressive numbers, and you saw what he could do against Oklahoma State when they knocked him off the other week. Houston's a very good team.
Yeah, and it's no surprise Keenum's being able to do this with the offensive coordinator he has, Dana Holgorsen, who's got ties to Mike Leach. He's basically under that Mike Leach coaching tree. And you see what Keenum's able to do. He's very, very efficient. He's 4th in the nation in passing efficiency with 180 points, and he's doing a great job of leading this team. Mike Leach talked about it. Keenum does an excellent job of kind of rallying his troops, and that was obvious against Oklahoma State in that upset when they kept answering the Cowboys even after they gave up a lead.
They did have a bye week this past week, and so they're still coming off that win against Oklahoma State. Do you think they'll come out flat, or do you think they'll come out excited for the Tech game?
It's hard to tell. You can never really kind of guess how these bye weeks are going to impact a team, whether they're coming into conference play and needing a break off, or if they're riding this high like Houston is, and all of a sudden the momentum might be gone, similar to what happened to Tech before the Oklahoma game last year.
We'll be down in Houston on Saturday, both Alex and I. We'll tell you everything that we see next week, of course, and dailytornado.com in the print edition. Real quick, wanted to talk about soccer. They lost a double overtime thriller to Alabama on Friday, but the bigger loss might be the loss of Brittany Harrison, their star player.
Absolutely. Harrison was a player who was dynamite, electric all over the field, someone who could play some defense, set up assists, set up goals, and even put the ball in the net on a regular basis. And she had all of Tech's game winners this year. So this is a very deadly player that they're losing, but I think Texas Tech will move on. This is a very great offense that they have. I think Taylor Lytle and Don Ward will continue to keep that offense going.
We'll keep tabs on that, as well as volleyball. They lost to NM this weekend. They're back on the road this week. We'll talk more about that next week. Thanks for joining us, as always. DTOnlineEditor@gmail.com if you have anything to say. You guys have a great week.